Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. Today on the program, Senators probe a multi-million tourism advertising deals.
Si Wanda is armed. She's a cabinet officer. Dapat alam ng staff niya.
In the hot seat, a former tourism chief and her brothers.
Wala pong nagsabi sa akin na Kilos Pronto was my brother.
60M, kung titingnan mo, may kulang pa nga sila, dapat maningil pa kami.
Lawmakers raise a possible conflict of interest.
Dapat yung lawyers nyo, o ikaw mismo, dapat sinabi mo, oy, may nagsabi sa akin yung Kilos Pronto, kapatid ko pala yan eh, papahamak nyo ba ako?
But the resigned tourism head insists she's done nothing illegal. Former Tourism Secretary Wanda Teo and her legal counsel, Atty. Nelson Borja, join us live. And later, planning on a food trip soon, try not one, but 500 experiences. That's for today's In Focus. Thank you for joining us. I'm Pinky Webb. The Senate Blue Ribbon Committee looks into the controversial multi-million peso advertisement deal between the Tourism Department and the government's TV network, PTV4. Former Tourism Chief Wanda Teo is standing firm that there was no conflict of interest in the deal. Our senior correspondent, Cecil Lardizabal, tells us more.
Senator Richard Gordon, who's chair of the Blue Ribbon Committee at the Senate, is convinced that former DOT Secretary Wanda Teo is liable in the controversial 60 million peso advertisement of her office that went into the television show of her brothers. He also wants to recommend the filing of charges of graft against Teo and her brother Ben Tulfo, who owns Bitag Production. Bitag is the black timer that airs a program, Kilos Pronto, on the government network PTV4, where the Department of Tourism, or DOT, placed the multi-million ads. Tulfo co-hosts the show with another brother, Erwin. Gordon and some senators agree it's hard to believe Teo was unaware, as she claims, of the nature of the contracts she signed. Gordon says PTV4 should have alerted Ben Tulfo that it was cutting a deal with DOT, which was then headed by his sister. Teo and Tulfo, on the other hand, testified in the Senate hearing on the controversial contract that the transaction was legal and went through proper channel, but Gordon was not buying this. Let's listen to what Gordon had to say.
Si Wanda is armed. She's a cabinet officer. Dapat alam ng staff niya na yung ginagawa niya, binabasa nila ang kontrata, nakalagay doon specified yung programa ng kanyang kapatid. Dapat yun nabantayan. So talagang hindi maalis yung perception and maybe even a decision that there was a conflict of interest. Kahit hindi ka nakapag-deal, alam ng kapatid mo, kapatid ka niya, alam niya may kumpanya ka niya, hindi niya alam yun.
Next year, yung secretary.
Tsaka paano niya sabihin yan? Meron siya mga staff, may mga lawyers. Galing ako dyan eh. Kahit nagaling sa DOT at nilagay lagay mo na, hindi totoo yan, at naglagay PTV4, dapat yung lawyers nyo, o ikaw mismo, dapat sinabi mo, oy, may nagsabi sa akin yung Kilos Pronto, kapatid ko pala yan eh, papahamak nyo ba ako?
Wala pong nagsabi sa akin na Kilos Pronto was my brother. Wala po from the very start. I said, I don't know that Kilos Pronto because all I know, kasi po hindi po ako nanonood ng TV, I'm a very busy person. I've been traveling a lot. Ang alam ko po, si Ben Tulfo, Erwin Tulfo, and Rafi Tulfo were at TV5.
Gordon is also clearing PCOO and PTV4 of any liability. He says the two are only following orders from President Rodrigo Duterte that government agencies should place ads on the government channel. Gordon is also clearing Erwin Tulfo because of lack of proof in his involvement in the operation of Bitag Productions, as he's just a talent at PTV4. The contract between PTV4 and DOT involved 120 million pesos. According to the Commission on Audit, 114 billion pesos was already paid, but there were conflicting figures on how much exactly went to Bitag Productions. COA says it was 89 million pesos, but the government channel says Bitag received only about 75 million pesos. But whatever the amount, Tulfo stresses is not returning the money because the contract was legal.
60M, kung titingnan mo, may kulang pa nga sila, dapat maningil pa kami. Talaga up to na, pinaglalaban ko na may utang pa rin sa amin ng PTV4 na dapat kami bayaran dahil may kontrata kami.
Now, Gordon is wrapping up the investigation and he hopes to come up with a committee report on the DOT ad deal soon. The next committee hearing involving Teo will be on her duty-free purchases and the Buhay Carinderia project with former DOT official, actor Cesar Montano. Senators also question how government money is being disbursed and how DOT gauges how ads should be placed. Senators are saying that the money should have been put to a program or perhaps a TV station which is rating more than Kilos Pronto and PTV4. Now, Secretary Berna Puyer of the DOT is saying that she wants to avoid a similar situation. Now, which is doing is reforms, and she's rationalizing guidelines on media sponsorships and also rationalizing the travels of DOT officials and its employees. Cecil Ardizabal, CNN Philippines.
The Tulfo siblings find few allies online, with most netizens dishing out harsh criticisms. Twitter user @Moki_Doki points out inconsistencies in the statements of former Tourism Chief Wanda Teo and her brother Ben. The netizen tweets, quote, "Ano ba kailangan nyo? Teleprompter?" unquote. This Twitter user says Tulfo, as a businessman, should know about ethics and conflict of interest. R.D. Lopez calls Tulfo a coward, saying he was acting meek during the Senate hearing, but would probably go on a rant later on the show he co-hosts. This Twitter user asks why the Senate is looking into the tourism ad deal only when the controversy broke out early in the year. Senator Risa Ontiveros asked former Tourism Secretary Wanda Teo and her brother Ben Tulfo whether they will return the 60 million pesos from the tourism ad placements on the PTV4 program Kilos Pronto. Teo says she initially listened to the legal advice of her lawyer, Attorney Ferdinand Topacio, that it would be prudent to return the money, but now she believes it is not wise to do so, just like what her brother said. Tulfo explains the money was used already to pay the staff of Bitag Media and that they have documents to prove their contract is legal.
So, kailan nyo nga po isasauli yung 60 million pesos?
Lilinawin ko ho, ma'am, ano?
I think before you do that, I think there's a miscommunication here. The question was asked upon Secretary Tulfo whether
Secretary Teo,
whether
yes.
she was going to return the money, and the answer was wala na, gastos na. Pangalawa, sabi niya pumasok na ngayon si Ben Tulfo, nauna naman silang pinag-usapan na isasauli. Is that correct?
Yes.
Hindi mo kilala si
Yes, Your Honor. No, Your
Topacio?
Honor. Hindi ko pa ho siya nakikita kahit
Is Topacio
minsan.
your lawyer, Wanda?
He was my lawyer before. I asked
At the time he
person-
said that,
Yeah. At the
he was
time
your
said-
lawyer.
Yeah.
So the statement saying na magsasauli came
Well,
from you, or came
no.
from him, or came
Came
from
from
them?
Attorney Topacio.
Came from him. And you did
Yes.
not tell him, did you tell him not to say that? Did you tell him to say that?
Actually, he told me to ask Ben kung pwede ibalik yung pera. So I told Ben because it was advice of my lawyer.
And Ben said no.
And I was forcing him. I said, kung pwede, ibalik. And first he said yes, and then later on he changed his mind.
So first he said yes, ma'am.
So Ben said yes first.
Sabi niya, titingnan niya kung saan niya kukunin yung pera.
Is that what he said?
He said, titingnan niya kung saan niya kukunin ang pera because nagasto na kasi niya yung pera eh. Di ba? He paid for the people, ganun lahat.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would have hoped that the story could have ended there because it would have been a good sign of positive, prospective, positive action from
Well,
Mr.
our
Ben
hopes-
Tulfo. But
our hopes,
unfortunately, it seems to have
Our hopes, as
changed.
you know, including my hopes, are irrelevant here because what we are here is we're getting the facts. That's the important thing here is get the facts.
Yes.
That's why
Well-
we cannot make a priori statements yet because we have not gotten all the facts. That's why I'm clarifying. Sabi mo, kinausap mo si Ben, sabi ni Ben, hindi niya na may sasauli. Is that correct?
He said, may hirapan siya because saan siya kukunin niya ang pera.
This is The Source on CNN Philippines. We'll be right back. You're watching The Source on CNN. Philippine senators scrutinize a controversial advertising deal between state-run television network PTV4 and the Department of Tourism. Former Tourism Secretary Wanda Teo and her brothers face the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee to defend themselves on allegations of conflict of interest. Teo and the Tulfos insist they did nothing wrong and they have no plans of returning the money. What's next after the Senate probe? Let's go straight to the sources of the story. Former Tourism Chief Wanda Tulfo Teo, and her legal counsel, Attorney Nelson Borja. Secretary, good to see you again. And Attorney, it's been so long. Good to see you too.
Yeah, I'm glad.
Okay, unahin na natin to. Secretary, kamusta na ho kayo? Mula nung, the last time we saw each other and after the hearing.
Medyo stress because of what happened. Pero ngayon, I'm okay. Medyo, after the hearing, nakahinga na ako. Because I was able to air my side. Remember? Ang daming allegations against me. Ano yan? Pinky. Ang hirap magsalita because the lawyer was telling me, wag daw ako magsalita kasi the case is already at ombudsman. So hindi ako makasalita. Ang daming mga issues. So ngayon, after the Senate hearing, parang nakahinga.
Pero na-stress din ho ba kayo doon sa, there were a lot of stressful moments nung medyo nagkaharap sina Senator Trillanes, kayo. In fact, medyo nakita ko, you got a little stiff, parang at some point.
Sinagot ko siya. Diba sinabi ko, that's your opinion. Diba sabi niya, plunder. So, yun lang. Pero I was even expecting more. Kasi alam mo, Senator Trillanes pag nagtanong, so okay naman. Medyo hindi naman masyado siya nagtanong.
No hard feelings with the Senator Trillanes?
At the end of the day, ganun naman yan talaga eh. Sanay na ako pag mga, di ba, we've been having Senate hearings when I was the DOT Secretary, sa budget hearing, yung sa Boracay. So medyo nasanay na.
Do you feel, though, that you defended yourself well?
Yes. I was able to tell them that the contract went through the legal process.
Senator Gordon is saying there could be liability on your part, Secretary. Let's listen to the soundbite of Senator Gordon. This was after the hearing.
Si Wanda is armed. She's a cabinet officer. Dapat alam ng staff niya na yung ginagawa niya, binabasa nila ang kontrata, nakalagay doon specified yung programa ng kanyang kapatid. Dapat yun nabantayan. So talagang hindi maalis yung perception and maybe even a decision that there was a conflict of interest.
Yun ang usapin, Attorney and Secretary. Siguro unahin ko na si Attorney.
Yeah.
Conflict of interest, sir.
Well, alam mo, malalim yung sinasabi niya, conflict of interest. Pagka yun ay ipaliwanag natin sa layman's language, kung halimbawa ikaw, isang public official, na mayroon kang interest doon sa isang private corporation at nakipag-transact ka ng business doon, then nandun yung conflict of interest na tinatawag. Ito, hindi siya kasama doon sa bitag, hindi siya kasama doon sa kilos pronto. Ang relasyon lang nila bilang magkakapatid. Wala nga siyang alam na si Bintol po pala yung nasa kilos pronto. Ang alam niya, bitag lang. But at any rate, ang conflict of interest, kung halimbawa siya, meron siyang share doon sa korporasyon na yan, and yet, nag-extend siya ng whatever benefits doon, yan ang tinatawag na conflict of interest.
Republic Act, Attorney, Republic Act 3019 or the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act. Let's put this up on the screen. Section 4 says prohibition on private individuals. Dalawa ho kasi yung posibleng gamitin yung 6713 Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards for Public Officials and Employees. And sinasabi din po yung Republic Act 3019 Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act. Kasi may nakasabi din po na nakasaad dito na it shall be unlawful for any person having family or close personal relationships with any public official to capitalize or exploit or take advantage of such family or close personal relations by directly or indirectly.
Okay. Ito ay suportado ng dokumento. Ang transaction dito ay between PTV, nag-offer ng proposal dito kay Secretary Wanda. At yun, na-consummate yung memorandum of agreement between them. So, DOT is a government entity. And PTV4 is also another government entity.
Government to government.
Yes. So, paano magkakaroon niya ng violation doon sa anti-graft? ay government to government within the executive department. Hindi lumabas yung pera sa executive department, DOT to PTB, under the office of the President.
But is that a correct defense, sir? Hindi lumabas ang pera? Lumabas ang pera dahil napunta sa bitag.
Hindi namin problema yon. Hindi problema ni Secretary Wanda yan. Problema ng PTB4 yan.
Dahil binigay nila sa bitag.
Dahil binigay nila sa bitag.
But what about the liability of Secretary? Sec, kami muna ha. Kasi nakasulat dun sa kontrata na a portion of that money, a big portion, will actually go to bitag. And then Secretary Teo already saying, sinabi na po yan ni Secretary Teo, hindi ko alam na ang bitag ay ang mga Tulfo.
Yeah.
Which babalikan ko mamaya.
Yes.
So, andun ho yun nandun sa kontrata
Yes, but the payment itself will speak for itself.
How?
Anong payment? Ang payment ng cheque ay from DOT to PTB. Walang payment doon sa bitag o kaya maski kay Ben Tulfo.
Walang direct payment,
Yes.
but there was a subsequent payment. Does that cause any liability on the
That's not our
board?
problem. It is a government agency to another government agency.
Na sinasabi po ni Secretary Teo from the past na hinihiling ni Pangulo na tulungan itong, a government station.
Yes.
Kaya yun ang sinasabi niyo, government to government. Okay. The argument, Secretary, that you already said that hindi mo talaga alam na yung bitag, yung mga Tulfo. Do you realize that for some people it's hard to believe?
Sa kanila siguro yung perception. Because from the very start, dapat nakita yan ng lahat eh. Ako, I've been telling from the very start na wala akong time manood ng TV. We don't talk. Yung mga kapatid ko, kung malaman mo lang, grabe, pag nag-birthday ako, kung minsan isang darating, mamaya may alis ng isa. We don't even talk. Mon, Rafi, Erwin, dahil may kanya-kanya silang buhay. So, I didn't know that Kilos Pronto is Ben. All I know, Ben is bitag. So, yun ang pagkaalam ko. Kaya, when they said, nang pumutok ito, doon ko lang, kapatid ko pala yung ano to. So, doon ko palang nalaman.
But you said you knew that Ben was bitag.
Yes.
Hindi ho ba?
But Kilos Pronto did not specify doon sa
It was bitag.
No,
bitag.
yes.
Ang nakasulat, Kilos
Kilos
Pronto.
Pronto.
So you're saying kung nakasulat daw na...
Kilos Pronto.
Kung nakasulat na bitag,
Oh yeah, I would
red
not.
flag.
Yes, yes. If I knew that it was my brother, I would not sign that.
So, Secretary, let me make this clear. Had you known that part of that money was going to go to Ben, or any of your brothers for that matter, you wouldn't have signed that
Yes,
contract?
I will lose my career. I will lose. There are people under me that also lose their career.
And they did.
Yes, and they did.
You
Because of
resigned.
that.
Yes. Other people also...
Yes. Would I, kung alam ko lang, i-risk ko ba yung career ko for that?
So does that mean, Secretary, that you believe there is conflict of interest? Because you already said na kapag nalaman mo, hindi mo gagawin yun.
Yeah. Pag nalaman ko, hindi ko gagawin yan.
Why?
I will not. Because kapatid ko si Ben eh. And of course, I will lose my job because conflict of interest nga.
So naniniwala nga ho kayo na isa tong case, tama ho ba, na isa tong case ng conflict of interest?
On my part, no, because I didn't know that it's Ben.
Had you known, ang sinasabi nyo, then it becomes conflict of interest. You agree?
Then probably, depende sa lawyer na yan. Sa kanya na yan. Kasi basta sa akin, as far as I know, wala.
Hindi mo alam.
Hindi ko talaga alam.
Ayon doon sa batas, ang conflict...
Ano pong batas?
Dito sa revised penal code.
Which part
At
of
saka
the
doon
revised penal code?
doon sa provision ng anti-graft, saka yung law on ethical standards.
Opo, Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards.
Nandun yung definition ng conflict of interest.
Yun na nga po financial and material interest. Public officials and employees, public officials, Secretary Teo, shall not directly or indirectly have any financial or material interest in any transaction requiring the approval of their
That is
office.
the definition of the law.
Yun po yung sinasabi niya, walang stake si Secretary Wanda Teo dun sa
Yes,
bitag.
that's it.
Yeah, but what about that indirect, sir? Hindi ho ba baka...
Hindi yan ang definition ng tinatawag na yung conflict of interest. Ang conflict of interest does not define any relationship. Ang dinidefine doon, kung ikaw ay mayroong investment,
Yun ang direct. What about indirect, sir? Let's stick to this. Public officials and employees shall not directly, sabi niyo. Kung may stake si Sec Wanda Teo, yun ang direct. Paano po yung indirectly? Pwede ho ba siyang makasuhan dahil sa indirectly?
Well, tingnan na lang natin. Kasi ang definition ng it does not include yung relationship eh. Ang nakalagay lang dyan, na kung halimbawa may investment ka doon sa isang korporasyon na yan, at yan ay nagbigay ka ng whatever financial assistance or whatever benefits, doon lalabas yung conflict of interest.
All right, we'll be taking a short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today, former Tourism Chief Wanda Teo, Tulfo Teo, and her legal counsel, Attorney Nelson Borja. Hindi ko ba kayo natatakot dun sa plunder, Sec Wanda?
I don't think lulusot sa plunder.
Bakit po?
Kasi hindi naman ako nag-amass ng wealth. Nag-research ako yan. I'm not a lawyer, but I make research. Tatlong A daw yan. Acquire. If you have acquire, amass, ano pa ba yung isa? Another.
Ano yun?
Ill-gotten.
Hindi, tatlong A daw.
Tatlong. Amass, acquire, and accumulate wealth.
Accumulate.
That you did not, you're saying?
Yes, because the money went to PTB. So paano yan? Kumuha ba ako doon? It went to PTB. So hindi ako natatakot ng plunder. It will never be.
It will never happen. Are you even sorry, though, that this happened? Yung totoo po.
Medyo nalulungkot lang na it happened. But sa akin naman, everything happens for a reason. Although I'm sad, but there will be lessons learned. Lessons learned from this. And sa akin is, I always think that everything happens for a reason. Bakit ako naging Secretary of Tourism? Hindi ko naman yan inakala, di ba? Umalis ako because of this. Hindi ko alam. I just leave it to God.
Yeah, so it cost your job.
Yes,
This
it cost
contract cost your job.
Yes.
So, Sec, again,
And there were people
who lost
who
their
lost
job
their
as well.
job because of this.
Some of them we've interviewed a couple of times during your stint as DOT Secretary. So, Ma'am, so ngayon po na wala na nga ho kayo, nag-resign kayo, just looking back, is there anyone in your department that should have told Secretary Wanda Teo, Ma'am, yung pera po medyo malaking pera ang mapupunta sa kapatid nyo?
Hindi kasi, wala kasing nakaalam eh. Had they known, kasi alam mo, ang daming dinaanan na proseso. First, Martin Andanar wrote me a letter. Doon pa lang, dapat nakita na. And then, PTB4 made a presentation, made a proposal. And then, ni-review ng aking chief of staff and everything, lahat sila. Then it went to BAC. Ang BAC walang nakita. Then ginawa ng lawyer. Yes. Then ginawa ng lawyer, even Kat, they said, they did not know. Dumaan sa lawyers, nang gumawa, walang nakita. Pagdating sa aking final, hindi ko rin nakita. So, yung prosesong dinaanan,
Wala talaga?
Wala. Tapos ako naman, di ba sabi ko, I've been very busy, I'm always out of the car. Hindi naman siguro pwede.
We can believe that, of course.
Hindi ko pwede. Oy, asana yung PTB? O ano nangyari? Hindi lang naman yan ang projects namin, ang dami.
But again, Attorney, Secretary, ignorance of the law does not excuse anyone. Hindi ho ba?
That's correct.
Paano yun?
Di labas nila ebidensya nila. Ganun na lang.
Ganun.
Si expression of innocent. Di ba?
Until proven otherwise. Yes.
And by the way, in addition to the sinasabi ni Secretary Wanda, ito ay, ang Memorandum of Agreement ay nagsasaad dito na responsibilidad ng PTB4 na mag-hire ng mga talent. Nakalagay dito sa
Contract.
sa kontrata nila. At saka nakalagay pa rito, subject to the final approval of DOT, it grants PTB a high degree of independence with regard to the production decisions to be made.
Nasa PTV4
Yes.
ang gagawin nila.
So, lahat yan ay sole prerogative.
Yeah.
Tsaka sound discretion ng PTB4.
But let's just talk about, how a daily or a common mind would think. The Tulfos, your brothers, they're quite popular. Hindi naman po sila hindi kilala sa industriya. So, kaya ang hirap po talaga, again, what do you say, ma'am, to the people who do not believe that you had no knowledge of this? Yun lang po. Anong masasabi niyo sa kanila?
Ang hirap, if hindi ko pwedeng araw-araw, when I was in Davao, I had to tell everybody, sa akin bahala na. Because in my mind, I am not guilty of anything. Ganun lang yan eh. Ang hirap magpaliwanag ng paliwanag if they don't believe, then that's it. Sa akin is, I am not guilty. It went to the process. Kung nalaman ko lang naman, dapat hindi ko na, had I known that it's there, my brother is Kilos Pronto, I would not sign the contract because I would lose my career. I would lose, there would be people who would lose the job because of me.
That was very clear on your part. We will be saying goodbye for now. We will continue this discussion on our Facebook Live, maybe another 10 minutes with former Tourism Chief Wanda Teo and, of course, her lawyer, Attorney Nelson Borja. Thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.